Not yet. Go on down. That was the old days, the pre-John days. My name is Dorothy Bullitt. I was the 2001-2002 president of Seattle Rotary, and I'll preside today in President John Bridges' absence. I want to welcome our members, our prospective members. These glasses are for not working for one, just guests and visiting Rotarians, and both here in the room and the many who are attending on Zoom. Seattle Rotary is the fourth oldest Rotary club in the world, and it is in many ways among the most influential. We were the largest for decades and decades. Over the years, our luncheons have featured speeches by world leaders such as Desmond Tutu. That was my year, and as president, we were in this same room. Bill Gates, Nelson Mandela, and President Gerald Ford. We look forward to adding Governor Jay Inslee to that list today. He's been here before, but this is a special visit. We begin our meeting with a song as a means of uniting our diverse group and centering our collective attention. Please stand as we welcome club member Raven Tymus Jones, and our guest accompanist, the distinguished composer Carol Sams, here to lead us in the national anthem. They will be followed immediately by Barton DeLacy and Paul Sy, who will make a business mentors announcement.
Looking forward to this. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed, and the twilight's last gleaming, whose bright stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Hi, oh, please take a seat. I wasn't sure I didn't say I didn't have more time. So I'm Paul Sy. I'm here with Barton DeLacy. We're the co-chairs of the Business Mentor Committee. The Business Mentor Program is a program that we do in conjunction with UW, where we mentor a team of students that are doing a consulting project helping small minority-owned businesses in the area. So, next slide. And that's, yeah, we help underserved communities. And next slide. Here's the key dates. Basically, the program only requires a commitment from November, and the intense stuff is really from January to March. And there's a year-end celebration in May. We really need Rotarians to volunteer to become mentors of this program. So Please go to the next slide. We have a list of very diverse businesses on the roster this year, so it'll be quite interesting for Rotarians as well to get to work with these businesses. So for anybody who's interested, please contact me or Martin or email Mary, and we'll get you on the list.
Right, it's one of the best opportunities to cross-generationally work. You get as much out of it as a mentor, I think, as anyone does who's actually being coached. So many of you have done this before, but I would, particularly our new members, it's a great way to get involved. So again, please see one of us or drop a note to Mary, and we'll be sure to get a hold of you. Thanks.
I hope you can give Mary the details to insert into the journal for people who want to see those slides. Okay, thank you, Paul and Martin, and thank you, Raymond and Leah. Thank you, that was beautiful. I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors for this meeting, REB Enterprises and Carl Banke and Bloodworks Northwest. We so appreciate your generosity month after month, week after week. I also want to thank Paul Casey for recording today's meeting, and David Bomanek, Dave Gibbon, Eric, Corman, and Derek Sleeps, two new members, for greeting today's attendees. We're lucky to have a lot of guests today, a number of guests here and on Zoom. Their names are listed on the screen. I apologize if we've missed somebody. Trudy Inslee is one of our guests. Thank you for coming. And I'm honored to have you here. If you enjoyed this today's meeting and are interested in club membership, please let Mary Goldie, our club director, know as you leave the meeting or after the meeting. Today is a special meeting for our club. We have the honor of hearing from our three-term governor and former Congressman, Jay Inslee. He served in 2 different districts. As he approaches the end of his long and distinguished career as a elected public official, though he manages to look pretty much like he did at the very start. I first met him on a basketball court when my then husband was playing basketball with him, and he looks very much the same. Our format will be pretty relaxed. Governor Inslee and will join our past president, Mark Wright, for a sit-down interview, as you can see. Mark will ask the governor about key aspects of his years of public service, including his extraordinary environmental legacy. During his time with us, the governor, a lifelong Democrat, will pay tribute to his predecessor, Republican Governor and Senator Daniel J. Evans, an honorary member of this club. Mark and Jay, would you please join us on the stage? Mark Wright is a former radio and television journalist and anchor with 35 years experience. He is a 4-time Emmy Award winner for his work as a reporter, anchor, and documentary producer. Mark now enjoys what appears to be an impressively balanced, healthy life. He just had a milestone birthday, looks fabulous. As a podcast and event host, a communications consultant, and principal of Mark Wright Media, a podcast and video production company with a global following. Some of us in this room have been privileged to serve as his interview subject. Please help me welcome Mark Wright in conversation with Governor Jay Inslee.
Dorothy, thank you, and Governor Inslee, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
He said he would behave when we talked beforehand, and Trudy promised me that she hopes he does as well.
No, I'm not running against those.
This could go viral, folks. Well, Governor Inslee, first spouse Trudy, President John, I should say Dorothy filling in for President John, fellow Rotarians. It's great to have you here. As we talk with a very special elected official in our country, this is a governor in his third term and the longest serving governor in our nation at this point. So that's an extraordinary. Before we get to the interview though, Governor Inslee, I'd love for you to share some thoughts on the life and career of Governor Dan Evans, who passed away last month at the age of 98, and today would have been Governor Evans' 99th birthday.
Well, you heard the accolades from every corner of the state, and so my observation will be well known to everyone. I guess what I would say is that it is so easy, well, for everybody, but for me to praise him in his leadership, because in any era of our state's history, it would have been remarkable because of its bipartisanship, because some of the growth activities he associated with building community colleges. In any era, it would be appreciated. I particularly appreciate it though because the things he was leading on are the things our state is now leading on. So he led an effort to embrace and protect the most incredible environment in the solar system, which is the state of Washington. And we're continuing to do that today. I think we're following in his value-based driven system. He was very committed to the education of our students, and today we now have the best financial aid package for our college students in the United States. It's an extension of what he was doing. He was very committed to fairness, certainly in our taxation system. He did not succeed, but he fought a noble battle to bring a little modicum of fairness to our tax system. We're now continuing that effort. So it's really easy for me to praise him because I think he set the tone for the state and the nation. And I wish he was the nominee for president of the Republican Party this year. I really do, because I know democracy would have been in good hands. And so we miss him. It's just one hell of a career that he had. And everybody, Democrats and Republicans, recognize that. Now, he's not the only good Republican that we've had. John Spellman, don't forget John Spellman, who preserved the clean water in Puget Sound. So we got a lot of Republican governors that have done some good work.
Thank you for those comments, Governor Inslee. And I think many of you know this. Yeah, that's what they're Our longtime member, Ralph Monroe, worked closely with Governor Evans when it came to locating refugees from Vietnam. And there are so many countless stories of hundreds of families welcomed by Governor Evans into the state of Washington when many, many other states were not welcoming them after the fall of Saigon. So Governor Evans will be remembered for that as well.
What I want to add too, as far as I know, he's the only other governor who's climbed Mount Rainier than myself too. So
We would expect nothing less from a former high school basketball star. Governor Inslee, you're coming to the end of your third term as our state's governor. I'd like to start by just asking to explore a little bit about your headspace right now. I know a lot of you in the room have taken prominent leadership roles, and I think it's common when we get to the end of that leadership role, there's kind of a mixture of relief and a mixture of pride, and what am I going to do next? I'd love to know just kind of what's going through your mind as you're entering the last few months of service as governor.
you mentioned relief. My departing public life is a relief to many people in the state of Washington. I will say that. Well, today it's a sense of joy. And by the way, I feel the same about this job as the first day I was on the job. I will tell you, we're running through the tape. I'm engaged in trying to solve some of our issues, to continue our efforts to improve our mental health. I mean, I'm on a daily basis, I'm on the job. So I actually don't feel any different than I did in the first day, with this exception. The last couple of days, I've had some just experiences that reminded me what a tremendous opportunity I've had to help Washingtonians realize their dreams. Today I was given an honorary Bachelor of Arts in Applied Science at Lake Washington Technical College. And got to be, because of the work we did on COVID together, and congratulations to Washington State for having one of the best COVID responses in the United States. But I got to meet these students that were so unbelievably inspiring to me. I met a young woman she came up, she's in 12th grade, and she gave me a book that she has written. And then I said, well, how'd you decide to write this book? She said, well, I had a little time left over because, I'm in school and I'm also running a business in India. And I said, what business are you running in India? She said, I've invented a way to keep vegetables cool in the back of trucks so they don't rot. And she's a 12th grader. My point is, I get to work with these people in Washington who are doing such extraordinary things. It's just a joy. So I was kind of reminded this morning what a joyous opportunity I've had. I get to meet with entrepreneurs who are inventing fusion. We have the 3 leading fusion companies in the world within 10 miles of the space needle. Fusion can be the absolute change of our clean energy problems and the salvation of our problems. I got to know a guy several years ago. He had this dream. We're now actually effectuating it. Yesterday I got to meet, here's an unusual joy I've had. I got to meet about 30 people who I have released from our penitentiaries under my clemency power. And they came with their families. They came with their families just to say thank you. And hearing their stories, it makes you just so proud of the human condition that people can have a rebirth. And it's something I got to do. You can only do this together. So I guess what I'd say how I feel is an absolute sense of joy having had this opportunity. And this is the best state in the country. Look, I thought real hard. Should I run for governor of Mississippi or Washington? I made the right decision for a lot of reasons.
I want to jump right in and talk about your role in shaping our state's policy on climate change. Climate and the environment really have been the cornerstone of your political career. Now, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I did a lot of research on the internet. I used several AI bots, which I found to be fairly reliable because they link right to the source. But your dad taught biology at Garfield. In fact, he taught Jimi Hendrix as one of his students, correct?
He didn't teach me chemistry. It was biology.
Biology, yes. Biology. Both parents worked at Mount Rainier during the summers, and I'm curious, is spending time there at that iconic landmark in our state as a kid, is that sort of what sparked your passion for the environment?
Well, 2 things motivate me. We all have our motivation. One is just the deep connection to the incredible natural life we have in the state of Washington. And it is unique, by the way. This is the most wonderful place in the country. The reason is we're the most diverse state in the United States. No other state has glaciers, coastline, rainforests, high mountain deserts, wheat fields. We're the most diverse. This is a unique place in the United States. And I feel deeply connected to it, in part because I grew up tromping around the mountains. My parents ran a group called the Student Conservation Association in Mount Rainier. I got to go up and see a shelter my dad built, still up there after 53 years the other day. So that was part of it. But the other part of it is I got 6 grandkids. And my biggest motivation in life is to do what I can do so my 6 grandkids and your 6 grandkids and nieces can have a shot at what I've had. And I've had one of the most remarkable opportunities of anybody who's ever lived, growing up in this incredible place. And I remember I was walking on the beach with my first grandchild, Brody. He was about 6. And we were down on the beach, and he was turning over rocks. And he was looking at little crabs and worms and limpets and stuff. And he just had this radiant sense of joy at seeing this life. And I realized that's the same way I felt when my dad took me to Carkeep Park. And he told me about the little limpets. And I want my grandsons and grandchildren to have what I had and what he's had. And I have a fundamental recognition that unless we do something about this problem of climate change, those kids are not going to have the kind of life that I have been experienced. So that's my biggest motivation. And then, would you like me to talk about climate change a little bit?
That's in fact my next question, Governor. So I remember back in 2013 as a journalist, you joined the governors of Oregon and California, as well as the premier of British Columbia, to form a coalition dedicated to fighting and identifying the causes of climate change. My perception at the time was, wow, here are some state leaders and the premier of a province in Canada who've decided to lead the way in a way that our national elected leaders had not been able to do to that point. I think a lot of people were frustrated that they hadn't. Is that what sparked that coalition, was the complete frustration at the lack of action and ability at the national level?
Well, yes, together with the recognition of what we can do as states. And today, I started with Jerry Brown, a group called U.S. Climate Alliance. We now have 24 states that are in an alliance that are all growing our economies based on clean energy industries. And if I may start this conversation about climate change, is not talking about the problem statement, which I'll get to, but talking about the solution, which is to grow a clean energy economy. In our states, together, we represent 60% of the U.S. economy. And we now have all of those states that are in our alliance have faster economic growth than those who are not in the alliance. Because we're doing things to help our entrepreneurs, our business people, and our skilled engineers grow a new economy. And we are rocking it on this subject in the state of Washington. We are leading the whole world in this revolution. And this is a revolution. We led the revolution in aerospace. We led the revolution in software. I'm proud to tell you Washington State today is leading the revolution in clean energy everywhere across the state of Washington. In Moses Lake, we have two companies that have a silicon anode battery that will be in production at the end of the year that will increase the range of your car by 30% for an electric car. 30%. I told you about these three fusion companies that will produce 100% clean electricity with no waste from the power of fusion. 3 days ago, I was in Yakima County with an 80 megawatt solar farm that we're now developing. And we've developed 182 solar generating capacities now because of the plant commitment. So, and we're putting about 80,000 people to work in clean energy. So my point is, the first thing to think about clean energy, about climate change, is it's a tremendous economic opportunity. And we are realizing it in the state of Washington because of the innovative capability of our country. And I'm really excited about that. Nothing is more gratifying to me than to get to meet these people with a dream of a new technology that can make it work. I mentioned the silicon anode battery company. I met a guy named Rick Luby about 20 years ago, and he had a little company on shores of Lake Union, about 8 employees, about how to make a little better ultra capacitor. And he told me in 2007, we need to really develop a battery manufacturing research capability in the United States. As a result of that, I went and got into the bill in 2008, the country's first multi-million-dollar commitment to battery research. And I was at the Clean Tech Hub that we mentioned, or test bed at the University of Washington 3 days ago, where he basically said that investment has now created a multi-billion-dollar industry in new clean battery technology. So that's the kind of thing we're capable of doing in the state of Washington, and I'm proud of our achievements in that regard. Now, I would like to talk about the problem statement for a moment, if I can. And I just want to share you, and I'm sorry if you all know this already, but I want to share you about what the science is saying about our state challenge of this problem. So I brought a prop here. I was at Lake Washington. I just walked by the parking lot, and there was a western red cedar. This is a dead western red cedar frond. This is all over the state of Washington today. If you see a western red cedar, it's going to exhibit this, most of all of our trees. Our western red cedar on the governor's mansion, it's about 80 feet tall, totally dead. And dead because of a combination of drought and heat. This is a symbol of what our future is if we do not act against climate change. Mount Rainier has lost 40% of its glacial ice during my lifetime. So project that to my grandchild's lifetime when he's 73. You might look up Mount Rainier and see almost zero ice in the summer. This year we had 350,000 salmon that could not go up the Columbia River because it was too hot. The water cooks the salmon. I've had to declare a statewide drought because of this problem that we now are associating. I've had 2 towns burned down, Malden and Medical Lake, in the last 5 years, and our children, 2 out of the last 5 years, have not been able to go outside and play in August because of forest fire smoke. This is a clear and present danger, and I do believe that all of us, and I believe all of us, whatever our political persuasion is, if anybody looks at our time on earth, and as leaders in the state of Washington, and everybody here is a leader in the state of Washington, we will be judged on whether or not we took on this challenge. I really believe that. And I am happy that Washington State is taking on this challenge with the Climate Commitment Act and a suite of other policies. We will not let climate change destroy this state. We are a better state, and I'm committed to that.
I'd love to know, Governor, how well positioned our state is when it comes to climate change. You spoke about fires and the threat of fires, but what about water rights, water supplies, rainfall? Are you optimistic that we may be better positioned than some other states? Because I remember doing some stories back in the day, talking to a winemaker in Walla Walla who 20 years ago was buying north-facing land because of climate change. Because grapes planted north will have a much longer life in the future. California is going to be too hot to grow some of these varieties very soon. But just from an infrastructure standpoint, how well positioned are we?
Better than Phoenix, where I was 3 weeks ago. I was stumping politically down there, and it was 117 degrees. I was there on the very hottest day ever in Arizona history in September. So we are better than many places, including the north, the Horn of Africa, which in 50 years, large swaths literally may not be inhabitable because you won't be able to go outside and work your agricultural fields. It'll literally be too hot. So we are better positioned. But you just can't overstate the kind of impacts we're already seeing. And on the hydrological side, there are some uncertainties, but generally speaking, we will get it both ways. We will get higher precipitation rainstorms that flood our communities in January, February, and March, and we will have a drought in July, August, and September. And we'll have, even if we get more snow, it just runs off in April and June. We can't use it for irrigation purposes. So the agricultural industry to Washington is very much at risk. Our grapes are now being damaged by smoke from these fires because the smoke actually, as the wine is maturing, it actually gets worse. There's a chemical reaction. And our grape growers are very concerned about this issue. Here's the one, we're always looking for a happy ending. Actually, we will have a little better temperature for growing some of our grapes. But if you don't have water for them, and if they're under a smoke cloud 2 months of the year, you got a problem. So, yes, as many things we're lucky. But the thing we're luckiest in, and I really do believe this, having been governor for 12 years, we are lucky because we have the most innovative, creative, entrepreneurial culture in the state of Washington, which allows us to maximize the economic opportunities inherent in this challenge. That's what we're lucky about, that we can solve this problem. This is a destiny that is in our hands. We can invent and build our way out of this. We're doing it right now. Look, we've got the things we need. We have the technologies today to be able to master at least 80% of this problem. That's what we should feel lucky about.
In 2021, Democrats passed and you signed the Climate Commitment Act. I don't want to oversimplify it, but basically it created a carbon market. So companies that generated carbon into the atmosphere basically paid for that privilege. There was a market where that right could be bought and sold. And then the proceeds, which were now into the multiple billions, I think, would be designated for green projects and subsidies. Initiative 2117 would basically undo the carbon market part of that. The critics of it are calling it a hidden gas tax. I'd love to know, just from your standpoint, what's at stake here if 2117 is approved?
the ability of the state of Washington to maintain what we have today in the next century. That's really what is at stake. And you know, this is not like optional. There's a lot of things that are optional in life. Should we go to Disneyland this year? Should we buy a hot tub? There's a lot of things that are optional. It is not optional to lose the ecosystem upon which our life depends in the state of Washington. That should not be optional. Mother Nature has not given us any other hand to play that we have to do something about this problem. That's the first thing I would say. Or our goose is cooked in many ways. And by the way, this is death itself. We lost over 100 people in the heat dome a summer ago, okay? People lost their lives in our fires. This is life itself. Vectors are moving north. Anthony Fauci got West Nile virus because mosquitoes are moving north. So the first thing I would say is this is not an optional issue. This is not a luxury. This is a must-do. That's number one. Number two, the Climate Commitment Act is a very well-known, successful program. It is in place in dozens of jurisdictions around the world, including in the eastern United States. And it does a couple things. Number one, the single most important thing it does is it caps pollution. It is an effective, concrete lid on pollution. It does not allow more than X tons of carbon dioxide from the affected industries into our atmosphere. That's the first thing it does. And actually, that's ignored, frankly. People kind of forget that. It's the very first thing it does is it limits pollution. Then it has the polluting industries, instead of foisting the cost of carbon pollution on children with asthma and children who might die of a heat problem and farmers who can't grow their grapes because they're full of smoke, instead of putting those externality costs on those parts of our community, it has polluters pay for their pollution. They get limited permits. They buy at auction. And then we use those proceeds to help Washingtonians to recycle all that money back to Washingtonians to help them deal with this problem in multiple ways, to help them get heat pumps, to get kids to ride to ride buses. And by the way, this would eliminate free bus rides for kids, to buy ferries, to finance our ferries, to provide about 1/3 of our entire transportation budget. And by the way, there's something we need to note about this. This money isn't going to Texas or New York. It's coming right back here. This is a recycling program of our cash back to the state of Washington. And I've met so many people who've benefited from it. Remember talking to an ag worker, gets up 3 o'clock in the morning in Toppenish, hard-working person. And she said, you know, I love my utility bills now. I go, why do you love your utility bills? She said, because it's zero. Because we got our solar panels and a little insulation. Other people are getting, I met a woman in Vancouver who's got a heat pump, whose utility bill has been cut by 80%, and she's warmer in the winter. You talk to kids who are riding electric school buses instead of breathing diesel smoke right now. And most importantly, maybe not most importantly, but most exciting to me is to meet these new businesses that are being created because we've given them a little startup capital, a little help in policies, a little tax break, that are now coming into our state and doing this thing. I know I met a guy who was a Stanford grad, and and two of her friends found this little, I don't know if it's not an enzyme, a catalyst. He had this little catalyst he was reading about when he was in his doctoral program at Stanford. And he said, there's got to be something I can do with this catalyst. So he and two of his student friends ginned up a way to make aviation fuel out of carbon dioxide and water, and that's it, with no pollution. They now have a company called 12 in Moses Lake, and they are making and have market customers to sell a product that's made out of carbon dioxide and water, and that's it. That's the kind of genius that we are growing in part because of the Climate Commitment Act. So it would be an absolute tragedy to eliminate this. This has been in practice for decades in many jurisdictions, and it is shown to be very effective. And I'm seeing the handiwork all around the state of Washington. We cannot go backwards on this issue.
Petroleum companies obviously are most impacted by this in terms of the carbon market. Your critics have really hammered you on a statement that you made that the CCA would cost pennies at the pump. It's been more than that. It hasn't been more than some have purported. If you could, would you take that statement back in terms of the projected cost of the CCA?
I don't know, because I don't drive in the rearview mirror. That's not how I run my life. But what I'll do is tell the truth now, which is there is nothing in this initiative, and I'm not here to advocate a position on this. I'm just going to report the facts to you. I'll let you make your own decision how to vote. So I'm not advocating a position on this initiative. But I will tell you there's nothing in this initiative that will guarantee, not one paragraph, not one sentence, not one word, that will guarantee that you will get some reduced gas prices from the oil and gas industry, okay? There's nothing in this that will actually accomplish that. You can only guarantee one thing if this came to pass: more pollution, more childhood asthma, more premature death, less help for Washingtonians to deal with this problem by the billions of dollars, an enormous hole in our transportation budget. Look, this is the only way we have for financing our 5 new ferry boats. This is the only way we have to finance it. Together with $1.5 billion a biennium of loss in our transportation budget. We got problems in transportation, as you know. So I'm happy to share that truth with you.
I opened my voter's guide this morning and was reading the multiple pages on the initiative. My head started hurting, so I stopped. How and when will we know that the CCA is working? And that is, how and when will we know that it's actually cutting carbon released into the atmosphere?
We know this today. We know this today because the day before yesterday, I was at the opening of a solar panel farm. It's 80 megawatts. It covers 600 acres. It's just east of Yakima. And that type of thing is we're doing all over the state of Washington. And every time we do one of these openings of new industries or citizens using these new technologies, you can show it's working. We have about 182 new solar projects that have already either been installed or in the process of being installed. We got 6,000 electric vehicles. We have hundreds, if not thousands, of heat pumps that have been installed. If you'd like, I can drive you around here, and every 5 miles we'll stop and I'll show you where this is working today. So I can demonstrate that this is working today. The numbers from a CO2 emissions on a statistical basis, you're going to have those numbers starting about 2025, because that's when the EPA actually comes around to evaluate the CO2 emissions. But I can tell you with moral assurance that this is working today, because I've been all around the state of Washington watching the success of Washingtonians. From that woman I told you about in Toppenish, she gets up 3 o'clock in the morning, and the rest of the day her solar panels are not burning fossil fuel. That's a success. And that's the kind of thing the Climate Commitment Act is doing. So I think we should be very positive about it. We should also be positive because it has been in place in so many different jurisdictions now for decades. This policy is well proven. And in the near future, we hope to merge our market in California and Quebec that will hopefully stabilize some of the auction prices. They have come down about 50%. That's a good thing. But we want to have a common market with California and Quebec to have further stability so the industry can have more predictability. The oil industry actually is kind of interesting. British Petroleum is actually opposed to this initiative, which is interesting when you think about it. And if you ask them, they'll tell you because they think this is a rational policy that allows business leaders to have some system of assuming what they should be doing and what investments they should be making. It has wide business support for that reason. In fact, I think there's about 500 organizations. But again, I'm not advocating a position. You got to figure this out yourself.
I think we got the message. Yeah, and something like 75% of the carbon in the atmosphere is there because of fossil fuels. So I get that. I want to ask about tax reform. You mentioned Governor Evans.
Can I mention something before
Yeah,
you
yeah.
get?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just what you say, it's oil and gas. Look, methane's really dangerous for us too. Methane is about 20, 30 times more dangerous per molecule of CO2. And the fact is, it presents a real danger as well. It's not just oil and gas.
Yeah. I want to ask about the gas tax. It's often criticized by anti-tax and people who support low-income folks. I think you can make the case, though, in the state of Washington, because we don't have a state income tax, there are a lot of taxes that disproportionately hit low-income people. The sales tax, the gas tax, and the list goes on. I don't want to open a can of worms, But can you envision a day when our state lowers or gets rid of some of these taxes in favor of a more fair state income tax?
Yes, it's today, because we have realized the first step forward to a fairer tax system in our state's history. Because we have, instead of putting a larger tax burden on lower income working people, we've created the capital gains tax, which affects just a few thousand Washington families, but has generated significant dollars and is being very effective for its purpose. Simultaneously, we have decreased the taxes for the bottom, 20-30% of our population by increasing the earned income tax credit. Now, this is something I think we ought to feel pretty good about. Something that Dan Evans was arguing for, 50 years ago, to try to make our tax system fairer. And this is the first step forward in a fairer system. The people at the bottom 20% of our economic ladder pay 6 times more as a percentage of their income than those in the top 20%. It is ridiculously upside down how we have not treated our people fairly. Now, this not be the only thing that people will consider in the future, but I'm proud that we have made steps to bring some fairness to our system. Now, that's in question as well, as you know, because there's an initiative that would repeal the capital gains tax.
That leads me to my next question. Another initiative would undo the capital gains tax. There is speculation that Jeff Bezos moved from Washington to Florida to avoid that tax. He recently filed to sell about $5 billion worth of Amazon shares. Now that he doesn't live in Washington, he won't pay that capital gains tax. Critics of it say that business people are smart and they'll just move to states that don't have these taxes. Your response?
You really want to live in Mississippi? I mean,
I'm just throwing it out there.
No, I don't think you can eliminate the possibility that someone might make a decision just based on it. I think that's a possibility, and that we may experience this. I noticed that there's a few Amazonians still employed in the state of Washington, and I think we're doing just fine in that regard, and we will retain a healthy economy. We've had minimal objective evidence that has happened to date, and I think it's been very successful. Now, the other thing about the capital gains tax, it has increased the fairness of our state, but it's also a way we support the education of our children, right? So if the capital gains tax, that's taking money right out of the schoolhouse, pulling it right out of those ways to support our kids, including in our colleges. It's a significant part of our educational budget right now. As a person, Trudy and I first got involved in politics trying to pass a school bond to build a high school in Selah, Washington. And it's something I felt strongly about is having a strong educational system. Dan Evans did too. He did remarkable things for community colleges. I would hate us for go backwards when it comes to the education of our kids, including this. I mentioned this, but again, we should be very proud of this. We have the single best financial aid package for our kids going to college in the United States. I don't want to go backwards on this. So I'm not expressing an opinion, but if capital gains goes away, we're going to go backwards in the education of our children. That's unacceptable.
I want to ask you about the COVID pandemic. This time will obviously go down as one of the most challenging times in our nation's history. Seems to me, at the time, it's hard to know if you're doing it right. If you get too restrictive when it comes to businesses and schools, if you lock them down for too long, there's lasting damage. If you're too lenient, people actually die. What was the biggest lesson that you learned as a leader during that period?
Marry well so that you will have a partner help you through it. And that's what happened. And I'm very serious about that. Look, governors are called upon in situations like this where no one else can do the job. And we have a democracy where the only person who could really effectuate the things we need to do to save lives had to come from the governor. And those are extremely difficult decisions. I have to say that it was very difficult to make the decisions I made because I knew two things. Number one, our actions would severely change people's lives for months at least in a whole different ways, educationally and businesses and just the way people live. And the decisions I made, I knew would be just horrifically impactful in people's lives. And I felt that weight a lot on my shoulders. But I also felt that this deadly disease was something that if we did not act, we were going to lose a lot of lives in the state of Washington. And I got up every morning deciding to try to do the best job I could to be in the right exact point on this. And you probably can argue 1,000 different ways about how we did. But I will say that I think it's a good thing that one thing is clear, well, two things are clear. One, that we saved a lot of lives. And I'll give you an example. If we had had the same mortality rate as Mississippi, who did not do some of the preventative things we did, we would have lost another 18,000 people in the state of Washington. Now, I was at the Clippers game the other day, and I actually was thinking about this because that gymnasium would have been full of people who were dead had we not acted, had I not acted. And so if you save 18,000 people's lives, that's a pretty good walk in the park. Look, I wanted to be a doctor when I was a kid, and I wasn't smart enough. I reached that conclusion. But had I been a doctor, I never would have had a chance to save 18,000 people. And that's what we did. And had the rest of the country, including if we had a president during the early stages of this who was really committed to improving this situation rather than creating doubt on our preventative measures, if the rest of the country had the same mortality rate we had, we would have lost 430,000 people. So we could have saved another 430,000 lives had the nation followed the state of Washington in our actions. So we had about maybe the third or fourth lowest mortality rate. And I don't know who they are when I pass them on the sidewalk, but I know there's a lot of people in Washington that are enjoying today's reign because of the things we did together. Now your next question is where did you screw up? And we don't have time for that. We've only got about 20 minutes, so.
If you could give your younger self some advice, Jay.
Well, I will mention one thing, if I will, as I look back on, obviously the retrospective scope is always 2020. I did have a frustration not being able to get our schools reopened as early as I wanted to. And there was just too much concern in the educational community to get people back into the classroom. That was a frustration to me. I don't think I did anything wrong. I did everything I could. But that was one frustration I will mention.
Okay, we're running short on time. So if you're game, I'd like to do a lightning round.
I'm too old for lightning rounds. Okay? I mean, really.
So the translation is short answers, Governor. Well, it's like I have to explain to my mom what a podcast is. Is that on the information superhighway? Okay, lightning round, Governor. When you were first cutting your teeth as a politician, who was your hero in politics?
Dan Evans, of course. I mean,
Okay.
come on.
What advice would you give to young people today who may be staying out of politics because it's so ugly and divisive?
Come on in, the water's fine. This is a great opportunity in so many different ways to be part of your community. I would recommend it to anyone at any level, school board, utility commissioner, library, whatever it is. This is a wonderful way to effectuate positive change. And it's incredible because you get to meet wonderful people. It's just an amazing experience.
If Kamala Harris wins the White House, have you thought about what your answer might be if she asks you to serve?
Well, she jilted me on the vice presidential nomination, so I don't know if I'll give you another chance. Actually, that's not the case. I love Tim Walz. I've got to know him very well, both in Congress and governor, and I just think the guy's a wonderful guy. What you see is what you get. I just think I'm so happy he's in that position. I don't know what my future is. I will look for something that I think is the most effective in trying to help us build a clean energy economy. I think it's the most important thing as my generation exits the stage to leave to our children and our grandkids. So I'm going to look for the way that I can be most effective doing that. It's something I would consider if she asked me, but have not had that conversation.
Okay, I know that we're just about out of time. I want to get one question from our audience that has been submitted in advance from Dan Mead Smith. Given that the state budget has doubled from 35 to 70 billion during your time in office with a much smaller increase in population, why do you support increased taxes and fees for the long-term care payroll tax and increased prices of gas? I know this is a hard question, a long question. Do you have a response to that as we wrap up?
Well, I think we should pay the smallest amount necessary for taxes to do the job we want government to do for us. And that's the amount we should do. And that's what we've been doing because we have had increasing challenges. We've passed two of the largest transportation packages while I've been governor, and that's not free, but it's necessary to economic development. We've had a problem in homelessness because we haven't built enough houses, and we've had an epidemic of drug abuse and mental health problems, and solving those problems is not free. By the way, I will note that if you drive up from Olympia to Everett, there used to be 45 homeless encampments, and I said, no, we are a better state than this. And you drive Olympia to Everett now, you won't see a large homeless encampment. We're making investments of the things we want government to do. The long-term care situation is, look, we believe in the dignity of people and the ability to age with dignity. And this is one step further in the commitment to our families to be able to age with dignity. That's what it does.
Final question. What do you hope your legacy will be?
I don't think about that. And I'll be honest with you, I've never thought about like my legacy because it'll only take 5 days to forget me. So, it doesn't matter what your legacy is. I live for what we're doing today, and I'm proud of our state. We get the best state in the country. I want to thank you for this incredible opportunity to serve. Thank you.
Governor Jay Inslee, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you. Thank you, Trudy. Thank you, Mark and Governor Inslee. I passed along the Harvest Against Hunger 600 meals to thank the governor for the time he spent here today. And now he's off to do the state's work. Those are 600 meals that you just took with you. Before we adjourn, Paul Sy and Paul Spieldenner and Kathy Gibson will come up and are going to ask us all to participate in a video recording for the Rotary Club of Kobe. And I know our longtime member and past president, Secretary of State, Ralph Monroe, would be so happy to know that you are going and that we are doing this today. So come on up.
Here, just stand right here. Everyone, we're going to say congratulations, Kobe Rotary, on a 100-year anniversary. Real simple. And we're just going to have you just turn around right here. And you're going to say it to us.
Let me slowly repeat that for everyone so you can say it in your heads. We don't have to do it 2 or 3 times. Congratulations, Kobe Rotary Club, on your 100-year anniversary. Everyone got that? Congratulations, Kobe Rotary Club, on your 100-year anniversary. Okay?
Okay, you guys ready? 1, 2, 3.
Congratulations, Kobe Rotary Club, on your 100-year anniversary. Take 2.
One more time. Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Congratulations, Kobe Rotary Club, on your 100-year anniversary.
Woo! Thank you.
Yeah, just for a reminder, to everyone. I think many of you know, we're going on November 14th, Kathy and Paul Tsai and I, to be at their 100-year celebration and represent all of you there. As you know, Kobe is our sister city, and so we want to warmly celebrate with them. If you have any questions or anything about it, just come up and approach us anytime.
And they'll be playing this video at their centennial.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul and Kathy, and thank you, Mark, interviewing such an experienced politician. It was quite a challenge, but it was fascinating, and thanks for breaking in there when you can. We will next meet on October 23rd via Zoom to hear from Karen Waters of Strategies 360. On the 30th, there will be no meeting. Then on November 6th, we'll return to the Plymouth Church, where we will hear from Acting Seattle Police Chief Surar, which should be fascinating. As we continue to implement changes to help us grow and refine our club, we look to you for feedback. So please complete the survey you received from Jen Gladys. I've asked her to send out a new email just in case it ended up somewhere you can't find it. It will take 2 to 5 minutes to complete, but its purpose is to inform any further changes we make as a club and how events large and small are scheduled. Next week, our board is meeting to review and approve the slate of club officers, board members, and SRSF trustees nominated to serve in the coming Rotary year beginning July 1st, 2025. These leaders will continue the implementation of our club's future vision, informed by your survey feedback. Watch your email for background information about the candidates, and then please vote when the online balloting begins next month. So the email will come this month, and then the online ballot will come next month. Finally, October 24th is World Polio Day. There will be a celebration from 5 to 7 at the Gates Foundation's Discovery Center. Check the newsletter this Friday for details and RSVP if you're interested in attending. And something we should be very proud of, our role in the eradication of polio around the world. It was such a privilege to have to welcome the Governor of Inslee to our club to reflect on his remarkable legacy and explain the important issues facing us on the general election ballot. Thank you all for attending the meeting. It means a lot to gather as concerned citizens of diverse points of view, to enjoy each other's fellowship, and to learn together. Please remember to vote. We are adjourned.